Hello and welcome to our today's MERLIC 5.1 release webinar. My name is Christoph Wagner, and me and my colleague Yi will show you today the upcoming release features of MERLIC 5.1. As always, if you have questions, please leave the questions in the chat function of the webinar. But now let's directly dive into the new features. Our first feature I want to present is DeepOCR, alias Read Text and Numbers with Deep Learning, is the name of the tool in the MERLIC tool library. In short words, DeepOCR brings the functionality to you to read any kind of text, more or less. But before we talk about the new feature, let's have a look how this works in the previous versions of MERLIC. The previous version of MERLIC provides the read text and numbers without deep learning functionality. It has a high parameterization effort for setting up all the parameters which are necessary for detecting the text in a correct way. So the polarization, the contrast, the size of the fonts, and all this stuff. So this means you have to fine-tune a lot of parameters. And due to that, it was very sensitive against deviations. So if you change the light or the product itself changed a little bit, you have to fine-tune the tool again. But on the other hand, it was very efficient on a CPU. And this is the reason why we let this tool stay in our tool library. But with MERLIC 5.1, we bring a better version of read text and numbers, in that case with deep learning. It works more or less with a default parameter set. That means you open the tool and in 90% it defines the text and reads the text in a correct way. On our database, on our reference database, we tested this DeepOCR tool and it brings 124 better recognition performance on this reference database. Isn't this amazing? And on the other side, it is a deep learning tool. That means you need a little bit more of computing power. But you can accelerate it on a CPU, on a GPU, and due to our 𝗖𝗍 interface with VPUs. More to that later. Some special highlights of this feature is, for example, it is a deep learning functionality, but without the price tag of deep learning. So that means you as a user can use this tool with the smallest MERLIC S package already. So you have not to pay an extra fee for this deep learning feature. And now a small spoiler alert, it's already future-proof because we already implemented the functionalities to use retrained classifier from Helkan, the upcoming release with Helkan 2205. That means you can retrain a classifier especially for your application, and with MERLIC you can read this already and use it for a better recognition rate for your DeepOCR application. The next topic I mentioned already is our 𝗖𝗍 interface. With MERLIC 5.1, we support for the first time the MVTec 𝗖𝗍 interface. That means this is an interface which supports more or less any kind of deep learning accelerators out there. And with MERLIC 5.1, we implemented the first standard interfaces, which one is the Intel distribution of OpenVINO toolkit and NVIDIA TensorRT. If we talk about OpenVINO, MERLIC comes with the OpenVINO support of the CPU inference already. That means you can out of the box use the Intel OpenVINO inference and speed up your application or your inference of DeepOCR, for example, and in the same time you can reduce the CPU load. If you want to use the Intel graphic cards or the VPUs like the 𝗵𝗿 chip or the Myriad stick, then you have to download the toolkit directly from the Intel website and install on your target machine. From that moment on, you can use any kind of deep learning accelerator which is supported by OpenVINO. The second one I will show you is NVIDIA TensorRT. This is for NVIDIA graphic cards, and if we compare this with our standard implementation of NVIDIA graphic card, It drastically increases the inference speed of your application because it's optimizing the network for the graphic card itself. And at the same time, it's significantly lowering the memory consumption. And in the end, it makes it more flexible for you to use it on your target platform. These are the tools which are supported by our AI Square interface and OpenVINO and TensorRT. It's classify image, detect anomalies, and read text and numbers with deep learning. And a new tool category, our concept tools AI. And by the way, please use this functionality to speed up also your existing MV-apps, because this makes a little bit more buffer in your application from the time perspective. And as I mentioned, the new concept tool category is also a new tool, or it's also a new feature of MERLIC. It means it's a new category in the tool library of MERLIC. And what does this mean? This gives you access to early prototypes we're working on at the moment, to know on the one side what comes next and what we're working on. And for us, it's a good way and most interesting because you can give us a feedback about a feature which is upcoming and maybe is not finished 100%. And this gives you the possibility to have an influence to our development. So please use this opportunity to give us feedback regarding the AI concept tools, or concept tools anyway, or even regarding MERLIC in general. So on the right side in the MERLIC Creator, there's a small button, it's our feedback button. Please use this opportunity to send us your feedback. Only with your help and your feedback, we can provide better fitting tools to your application. But with these concept tools, as I mentioned, we're talking about tools which are not finished 100%. That brings also some limitations with it. We strictly do not recommend to use these tools in the production line because we cannot guarantee for the stability or compatibility for the next versions. So please have this in mind if you work with such kind of tools. And now I'm happy to show you the first of our concept tools. It's the tool called Find Objects. It's based on the deep learning technology object detection and is available now in the tool library in the category Concept Tools AI. And for making you a better step into this new tool, we also add a new example, find and count screws. It makes it a good starting point for you and makes it better or even easier to step into this kind of tool. But also here we have some notifications. At the moment, the training is only available in 𝗪𝗪. You can label the data and can train your classifier in 𝗪𝗪, can use this trained classifier and use it in the MERLIC tool Find Objects. And as I mentioned before, there's no guarantee for the stability and compatibility, so please don't use this tool in the production line, but use it, have fun with it, and give us feedback if this fits the spot for you. Now I have an additional improvement. We improved the evaluate expression tool. This makes it very easy or easier for you to understand the tool flow in a better way. I have some small example with me. Here we can see the example of classify pills. It's one of our examples we provide with MERLIC. The first tool is the image acquisition, the second one is the image processing, and these three tools are only there for preparing the information for the front end and a little bit of logic inside the MV app. And with MERLIC 5.1, the same MV app looks like this. We reduced this 3 evaluate expression to 1. And we did that because we add more lines within one eval expression module or tool. That makes it much more easier for you on the one side and reducing the number of tools within the tool flow. This is reducing the complexity of bigger MV apps. I think in that MV app it's not a big deal, but if you have bigger MV apps, it makes definitely sense because you're reducing the complexity, and if you have a first look on such a big MV app, it makes it much easier to step in Additionally, you optimize your runtime because every tool in the tool flow needs a small overhead for initialize the tool and execute the tool. And if you reduce it in a higher number, you also will save some runtime in your MV app. And last but not least, we add the auto-completion to the evaluate expression tool to make it easier for you to find the right syntax for writing such kind of eval expression tools. By the way, Yi will show you later how this works in detail. And now, last but not least, a kind of feature. With MERLIC 5.1, we offer the first time 2 test versions of MERLIC RTE for you. The first test version is to test the MERLIC RTE on Linux-based systems, and the second one is to test MERLIC RTE on ARM-based platforms. But before we talk about the test version, I will have a small look at the workflow of MERLIC RTE. On the left side, we start with the MERLIC creator. There we create our MV apps, more or less. The designer. With the designer, you design your front end you want to show later in the application. And the RTE setup, the runtime environment setup, which is used for setting up the image source, setting up the recipe, and set up your communication with the PLC later. In short words, we're talking about the development environment. And on the right side, we have our ESM, which is the short form of Image Source Manager, which is acquiring the images on the runtime environment, and the MERLIC RTE, which is executing the MV app and communicate to the PLC. And now if we talk about this workflow, let's add the hardware. Normally it looks like this. We have on the left side, on the development side, we have our development PC, which is based on Windows. Afterwards, you create your MV app. You can directly put this MV app to the right side, to the runtime environment, to the industrial PC, also Windows-based. To the industrial PC, the front end is connected and the communication to the PLC is connected. And with our new test versions we provide with MERLIC, now you can use Linux-based industrial PC on the runtime environment side, or even an ARM-based system, for example, with some smart cameras. But I'm talking about test versions. What does this mean? For us, this means it's the first step for entering new platforms with MERLIC. For you, this means you can try out our MERLIC runtime concept or remote concept on different kind of platforms. But in the end, we want to collect feedback to see what we have to improve before we will release this in an official way. And also, here we have some limitations because we're talking about a test version. That means the test version is not designed for the production line. There is also no guarantee for stability in that case, but use this opportunity to give us also feedback regarding these test versions. And now I'm at the end of this high-level presentation, and now I will hand over to my colleague Yi, which is showing you the new features in the live presentation.
Thank you, Christoph. Hello, everyone. My name is Eli. I work at MVTec as an application engineer. As next, I would like to introduce you the new features in detail with a real task. You see here is a pudding pack, and here is a 𝗪𝗻 logo, which I will later use it to locate my pudding pack and align the image. After I align the image, I want to detect the text in this region. You may ask, our new tool read text and the numbers with deep learning? It can already read the text in different directions. Why do I need to align the image right first? Because aligning the image makes it easier to set a region of interest. If we don't do that, our new tool can still read the text, but it means all of the text will be read. It means then I need to select them separately manually. That's why I want to at first align the image. I will develop this application at first on my Windows laptop, and later I want to run it on an ARM-based device or a Linux device. In this webinar, I will use this Linux laptop to show you how to do that. I have already done some preparations, and I would like to go further together with you to finish it. In the meanwhile, you will see how much convenience our new features bring. Let's see, what does this application do? At first, we need an image. Then, I use this tool, ISM, which stands for Image Source Manager. Later, I will always use this abbreviation. What does the ISM do? It can connect to a camera, or it can connect to a file folder where we can read the already acquired images. You see here, this ISM is connecting to a camera, and apparently, the image is overexposure. Let's go to the Image Source Manager, Image Source configuration to set it correct. You see here, this is the camera, and it is overexposure. In earlier MERLIC version, when we want to look for a camera parameter, we have to expand the menu and look for it manually. But now, we have the search box here. Let's type here exposure time, and let's set it a little bit lower. For example, 25. Yeah, take a snap. It looks much better. This image. And now, after setting the camera parameters, I want to save them. You can see here, save parameter we can use, but there was a problem. We didn't know if the parameters are persistent or not. What is the difference between persistent and non-persistent parameters? Simply said, we can only save persistent parameters. For those non-persistent parameters, we are not able to save them, as once the camera is plugged out, these non-persistent parameters will be restored into default. Then, who defines the camera parameters which are persistent and which are not persistent? The answer is the camera manufacturer. If we want to save the non-persistent parameters, their SDK should be used. What we can do is only to tell which camera parameters are persistent and which are not. In the new MERLIC version, we provide a symbol here. All the non-persistent camera parameters are marked as non-persistent, and it has a little symbol beside it. Also, we have the option as a filter. Here, click here. We can only see the persistent camera parameters. Yeah. Okay. When I develop my application, it is at best to have two configurations, one offline and one for online. In the offline mode, we would like to read the acquired images to do our further image processing and do some debuggings. In the online mode, then, we will connect to a camera and test it, run it in the production line. We can set it here. You see, I have already set a configuration which the name is production and one is offline. You see here, the configuration names are not consistent. Let's change it to development. You see, that's simple. In the new MERLIC version, we can easily change the names of configurations and the names of image sources easily displayed in MERLIC. Okay, now I would like to activate this development configuration because later I will develop this application further. Yep. Okay, as the image source configuration we have already done, let's go further. After we get the image, like I said, I want to align the image. Here, at first, I will use this tool, locate object with matching, to locate the 𝗪𝗏 logo. And it delivers the alignment information, which could be forwarded into this tool, align image, to align the image. After I get the already aligned image, I can use our new tool, read text and numbers with deep learning. This is the new tool I would like to introduce you. Compared to our classic tool, read text and numbers without deep learning, it is more suitable to be used in following situations. First, when we don't know where the text position exactly are. Our new tool read all the text in the region of interest we have already set. If we don't set a region of interest, it just looks for all the text in the whole image. Secondly, when we don't know the text orientation exactly, with our classic tool, read text and numbers without deep learning, we have to at first align the region of interest approximately parallel to the text orientation. But the new tool, we don't have to do that. Thirdly, when we don't know what types of fonts we are looking for, and correspondingly, we don't have a trained font model that we can use. No worry. Our new tool reads all kinds of fonts we have already trained. For example, here the types of 𝗪𝗏 and the types of best before date, we can read them easily. Fourthly, higher performance can already reached using default parameters, which means we don't have to do much parameter fine-tuning compared to the classic tool, read text and numbers without deep learning. Okay? This tool has two modes. One is detect and read. It at first detects where the texts are. And then secondly, it tries to read what the texts are. Another mode is read mode. If in your application you already know where the text exactly are, then you can use this mode. It reads directly what the texts are, and it costs much less time. So if you already know the exact position of the text, please use this mode in your production line. As Christoph already mentioned, our new tool reads text and numbers with deep learning. It supports CPU, GPU, and also AI acceleration interface, like OpenVINO for CPU and TensorRT for GPU. I would like to here try the OpenVINO and see how much faster it brings. Let's change it at first to CPU and run once. You can see here, maybe it's a little bit small. I will make it bigger so that you can read it clearly. It costs about 400 milliseconds. And let's change it to OpenVINO. Every time when we change the processing unit, the model will be optimized. It takes a little bit time, but no worries. This only happens once when we change the processing unit and when the model is optimized. Now it is already changed to OpenVINO, and let's run it once. Let's see, 240 milliseconds. Using GPU and OpenVINO, it will be much faster, but because of the time in webinar, I will not show them. You can always test them on your own devices. And also, this AI acceleration interface can apply on other AI tools like classify images, doing image classification, detect anomalies, doing anomaly detections, and also our new tool, find objects, doing object detection. They can all benefit from the speed up. You can always try to use them. You can see here, we can set a region of interest to read our text. When we move our mouse over the heat map, you can see here the decoded result and also the score. This tool delivers the decoded text, which we can use them and further process them in our tool evaluate expressions, which is here. In our case, 2 lines of text are read, and we only need the first line. So I would like to type here the text. You must already notice that there is a new function, auto-completion. It reduces much work, and also it reduces the possibility of typing error. Now in this case, we want the first term of the text, 0. Then we get our date. What if now I also want to express the day, the month, and the year information? In the earlier MERLIC version, we then have to add for each result 1 tool evaluate expression. But now in newer MERLIC version, we don't have to do that. Press here, add expressions. We can add as many results as we want. Let's try to do it. Change the variable name to, for example, day. And the day information is the first 2 terms of the date information. So let's type here date and 0 to 1. Then we get our day information. It is the first. As you can imagine, with this new function, we can extremely reduce the tool number, and correspondingly, we can reduce the complexity of the whole app. Make the app more easier to understand, and don't forget, with less tool number, the processing time is also reduced. You may still remember that Christoph mentioned about the new tool category concept tools. It has now 1 tool, find objects, under the concept tool AI. It bases on the object detection function in Helicon, and we have an example for you. You can find it here, open examples, and find and count screw types. Please try it. You are very welcome to give us any feedback about the tools under concept tools. Please press here, submit feedback, as well about the whole MERLIC. Okay, now since we have already done developing our application, I would like to run it once in front end. Let's try it. Launch front end. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. To activate the production configuration. Now activate it. Launch front end. Launch. Also here, I just now only changed the exposure time, but I forgot to save it. So let's do it quickly. Save the image and run it. You can see that we can change the exposure time and all other camera parameters when the application is still running. Let's change it. You can see my hand is rotating, so it works. The best before date is also correctly detected. Okay? Do you still remember what is our next step? After I have already developed my application on my Windows laptop, I would like to run it on my Linux laptop here. How do I do that? You may still remember that Christoph mentioned once how do we what our workflow is like when we develop the application. You see here, we have already developed our application on Windows laptop, and what should we do on the Linux laptop? We installed the MERLIC. This is easy. We copy the files of our application. This is easy. We adopted the patches. This is also easy. And then we are able to run the application. I will show you how to do that, how easy that would be. To do that, I will need a tool. The name is 𝗵𝗺. Let's close the MERLIC here. And find the tool 𝗵𝗺. Why do we need this tool? This tool can be used to connect the Linux laptop on my Windows laptop, and I can execute commands there. Let's log in. I will make the text a little bit bigger so that you can also read it clearly. In order to do it further, I will still need another tool. The name is Wingstp. Why do we need this tool also? You can see here, with this tool, I can easily do data exchange between the Windows laptop and the Linux laptop. You can see here what files I have already copied here. The configurations. It is the ISM configurations we have just now configured. The images, they are the acquired image for development. An ini file, the ini file tells MERLIC which ISM configurations I should use. It tells also MERLIC which MV app I should run and under which inputs. Also, I can define other settings. For example, here, I give this application one signal to tell MERLIC, please run once every 100 milliseconds. So, and we need a recipe. This recipe defines which MV app we should run, which is here. It is connected to this MV app. Okay, now we are already able to run our application on Linux laptop. What I still need to do is connect the camera we just configured onto my Linux laptop. Connect it, and let's try to run it. I will need to go the folder where I installed my MERLIC, which is here, bin Linux, and copy the path. Let's go to the folder, cd folder. These operations are just like on the Windows laptop. And then we should run the MERLIC RTE command here, MERLIC RTE with our ini file. Ini, and which ini should we run? Here, MERLIC applications, our applications, this MERLIC 5 ini. Let's copy the path here and MERLIC 5.ini. Enter. Okay, now it's already running. But how can we see that it's running? We need a front end. If a screen is already connected to your ARM-based device or your Linux device, you can just run the front end there. But in this webinar, since the screen is connected to my Windows laptop, so I would like to run the front end on my Windows laptop. Here is where I installed my MERLIC on my Windows laptop. Let's print here cmd. With this option, we are already in the folder where we install our MERLIC on Windows system. The command I want to execute is MERLIC front end and to the IP address of this Linux laptop, which I have defined it to this and a port. Enter. A front end is opened, and it's already running with the production configurations. Let me rotate it. You see? Because you are watching the aligned image, so the pudding pack will not be rotated, but you can see my hands. It's rotated, and the best before dates are correctly detected. Let's change to another pudding pack here. For example, this is the same brand, but under her taste. You can see here, the best before dates are correct. Another one, also correct. Okay, that would be our application. And one more new function I want to introduce you is we can now run the front end in startup already in full screen mode. Full screen, CREEN. It's running in full screen mode. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will hand it over to Christoph. Thank you.
So, thank you, Yi, for your presentation about the new features of MERLIC 5.1. Thanks for your attention. Please have in mind that the release of MERLIC 5.1 is on the 7th of April. Mark this date in your calendar and see you next time and have fun with a new version.